All right, let's go Arizona Cardinals. I know where we're going with the Cardinals. They up and down last season, still pointed in the right direction, I would say. They go 8-9, doing it with a roster that was completely reshaped over the last couple of years, but still has more work to do. And all we talked about this year when we broke down Cardinals games, both in previews and reviews, they were tough to predict how well they were going to play every week, and the defensive line needs an overhaul. And I think Jonathan Gannon, heading into year 3 as the head coach, I think he's done a nice job. I think the defense is overachieved, I would say, relative to what the personnel would bring to the table. And my big takeaway all season for the Cardinals was, want to see what this defense looks like when they have better personnel. So this year should be all about adding multiple pieces to that defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, last season the defense on paper looked awful, and it looks worse this year. Somehow, okay, they've got there's a lot of young players there, and who knows what their projection is, but they're losing some of their better defensive players on a unit that already looked terrible on paper. Kaiser White at linebacker, the Barbarian. Okay, he's coming off a knee injury, but Dennis the Barbarian Gardeck is out of there as well, theoretically. Baron Browning, who they brought over, Victor Dimukeji, who's a really useful rotational guy up front. The defensive line already looked like a preseason, a week 4 preseason team, and it's losing some of the best players. So I think overall, there's almost nowhere on that defense that you couldn't upgrade with a quality player, but definitely the defensive line is first and foremost. And again, that feels like one of those teams that should just be hammering that. They've got a ton of cap space. They have the ammunition to do it. And if teams are going to overpay for guys like Milton Williams, I mean, this is a landing spot.
Also you have the Eagles connection with Gannon to both Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. I think if we're trying to pair free agents together from a predictive standpoint, I could absolutely see that, right? Either guy. Because again, I think first order of business, Sam, let's just get this out of the way. You do not, under any circumstances, let the Barbarian walk out that door. You do not let him out of the building, right? So the Barbarian, he's back. Now, love the Barbarian, Dennis Gardeck. Don't love him as my best pass rusher, though, right?
No.
Love him as a complimentary piece, right? You have Josh Sweat, you have Milton Williams, you have somebody from the draft, you have Darius Robinson developing. Barbarian is going to get his 10 sacks. Josh Sweat, Dennis the Barbarian Gardeck, get them working together. So Barbarian's coming back on our team. And then I would grab one of those former Eagles. I would pay the money for Milton Williams or Josh Sweat. I think that's the spot Arizona's in. And then also replenish in the draft. The same thing I've suggested for many teams, the potential to double up on the defensive line in the draft, prime real estate this year, the way it shapes up.
Yeah, I mean, I think Milton Williams makes a ton of sense for this defensive line. Like Milton Williams, last year's top draft pick, Darius Robinson, these are guys that can coexist on the same defensive front. You still need an edge rusher as well. This is a team I think that could conceivably attack this in free agency and the draft with multiple players in both and not be overloading things. Right now, their best pass rusher theoretically is Zaven Collins, who is a former a convert from off the ball linebacker. This is a team with very, very little on the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I read out the rotation last year. Roy Lopez, and I know some people like Roy. I think our guy Nate Tice likes him as a nose tackle type. I mean, we're talking PFF grades for a lot of these guys in the 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And you say what you want about PFF grades. They're pretty good indicators of O-line and D-line performance. And so the Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols, Dante Stills, LJ Collier, Kairis Tonga, Roy Lopez, those are the guys they've been trotting out there the last couple of years. So they need help across the board. Only 5 draft picks for Arizona after a high-volume draft last year in particular. So I think it's got to be free agency where I think they got to make at least one of those moves, whether it's Josh Sweat or a Milton Williams. I'm leaning on one of those has to happen. And then at pick 16, we've talked a lot about James Pierce and his fall, and I would love to get him in the teens. I think he's a top 10 caliber player in this draft that you could get in the teens. And, if you got a, say, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, bring back the Barbarian, like in 3 moves, you're talking about this defensive line looking much better.
Yeah, I think that's a definite possibility. The mid of that first round is going to be interesting because I think you're going to have quite a lot of those options, whether it's interior or edge. Walter Nolan. I think you're going to have plenty of those guys available. So a little bit contingent on what you do with free agency, but I agree. Like this is a team that should be vying for one of the best or one of the biggest contracts in free agency for. Whether it's Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Odigizua is another guy we've talked about as in that option as well. Like, I think you can potentially bring in some of the middle tier guys as well. Like Puna Ford made a huge difference to the Chargers defensive line last season as a sort of stout run stopping nose tackle type. The Cardinals, he would upgrade them as well. So like if you hit this with, the marquee spend, whether it's Sweat, whether it's Milton Williams, Odigizua, you then add like a mid-level spend in a guy like Puna Ford and hit it with the first round draft pick, whether it's interior or edge. Like I'd be for all of that.
I love that. Oh, that's great. Puna Ford, big fan of him. Think I would, we'll talk about him maybe with the Chargers and they're, probably hoping to get him back, but I would sign Puna Ford every year. He's one of my every year guys as well. Levi Onwuzurike, got to mention him as well as that second wave of free agency possibility here for Arizona that I think would be a really nice fit. So I got to address the offensive line first. What else are you thinking as far as Arizona and what needs to happen this offseason?
Well, yeah, I think you've also got the offensive line as well, which is it's not the defensive line in terms of complete absent of everything, but they don't have guards right now that you can rely on. You've got, I think, 3 of your 5 spots in reasonable shape with the center and the 2 tackles, but this is a team that needs guard help pretty quickly.
So are they in the Tyler Booker in the middle of the first round type of option? I mean, that's where a lot of these guards who aren't elite prospects end up getting mocked a lot of the time.
Well, this is like I think it makes sense to bring back Will Hernandez as one of the spots. I think I saw him bouncing around Radio Row for the Super Bowl. I think he was talking about wanting to be back in Arizona. I mean, that's a fit I think that makes sense for both sides. Hernandez to stay there. Arizona should probably want him back. You still need an upgrade, or you still need a left guard. On the other side, I would try and pick that up in free agency, or try and add a body in free agency so that I don't need to do what we just talked about and spend that mid-round or mid-first round pick on a guard. I can go after the defensive line, which will still be a need no matter what we do in free agency. So I would want to try and, find a guard in that mid-tier free agency that I can be reasonably comfortable with starting.
Hernandez coming off injury, I think that'd be a good guy to bring back. He's another one of those. By the way, if you want to feel old, he's heading into year 8, Sam. But remember, him coming out of UTEP. But slow start to his career with the Giants, gotten better with the Cardinals. Another one of those classic later type of bloomers for the offensive line. So I think that at least solves one of the problems. The other thing, me and speed for receivers, I think they could use a speed guy, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. might play fast as far as some of the numbers coming out of college and everything, but he's not a pure burner. Michael Wilson, not really a burner. Greg Dortch, more of a slot shiftier type of guy. I would love to see just take the top off the defense, deep threat here to complement some of those guys.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Just as a suggestion for my starting guard, Patrick McCarry from the Ravens, who's played like every position in the offensive line, I think is an upcoming free agent. He started a guard last season. He's, I guess, an average player. Like he's got a level, but that dude brings a ton of versatility. And if I need him to start a guard while I'm figuring out the rest of this depth chart, I think he can do that and be a solid player there. Good
suggestion there. I'll throw the Darius Slayton thing out there. Slayton's interesting, Sam, because I don't know if he's going to get wide receiver 2 money for certain teams. I think as a 3, though, as a guy that is just, a vertical type of threat. You mentioned him for Seattle. I'll mention him for Arizona. Like I think that could be a nice fit as far as the speed goes. Draft wise, to add speed, I don't know what he's going to run, but Jalen Knoll from Iowa State looks fast, looks quick. I think he's got some of that vertical presence. That could be a nice, mid-round type of option.
And what about Tez? What about Tez Johnson? He's not necessarily just a vertical speed guy, or not even necessarily that primarily, given how they use him at Oregon. But like, I mean, that's how you project Tez Johnson forward. The Oregon receiver that's like, what was he, 5'9", 155 or something ridiculous? Like, projecting him forward is going to be a fascinating decision for teams.
I was looking at him as well. I felt like, is he redundant to Greg Dortch? And maybe I'm just like size profiling too much with those two guys, but I'm down with Tez added to the Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson mix. I think that'd be a great addition for Arizona. Good suggestion there. Is that it on the Cardinals? I mean, to me, again, I think it needs to be one of those completely overhaul the defensive line, outside backers, whatever you want to call them, but the pass rushers, run stoppers, those guys up front, the front seven really needs to be overhauled in Arizona. And they have an opportunity between free agency, the money they have available, in the draft to really make it happen here. Great.
The Greg Dortch thing is bugging me because I've been talking about him as a free agent. I see conflicting reports about whether he's actually a free agent or not. Some people are calling him unrestricted. Some people are calling him restricted.
I don't know.
It's unclear.
I see him back on what I'm looking at. So we'll
get
to
I've
the
seen
bottom
it both
of that.
places now. So I'm confused as to what the problem is with his current designation.
By the way, and if you do bring the Barbarian back and last year's first-round pick, Darius Robinson, I think Robinson has great potential. And, I don't know if he's a pure edge. I don't know if he's just this movable guy. I just think I don't trust Darius Robinson to be the leader, right? The one big-time pass rusher that you depend upon. But if there's a Milton Williams or a Josh Sweat, like as part of this rotation where you can create mismatches and everything, Darius Robinson's value goes up. So the more I like the way they say the Chiefs built their defensive line the last couple of years. You have a Chris Jones that can move around. You have a long body in Charles Omenihu. You have the power of George Karlaftis. You have different style players to block. Darius Robinson's value goes up as you get more players that are difficult to block around him with different styles. So I think it's a big opportunity for Arizona to just make the defensive front so much better this offseason.
Yeah, Darius Robinson's rookie season unfortunately provided very little clarity from, like, he was this intriguing prospect where it felt like he was like coming into the draft outside of his era. Like if he was coming into the NFL circa 2003, we would be like, I mean, he would be, Tyson Jackson was drafted 3 overall or something, right? Like we would be talking about a top 5 draft pick for one of these old school, traditional 3-4 toot gapping type of defenses. He's like the perfect fit for that. But it's not. It's 2024 when he came in. You're like, I don't know where he fits. Is he an interior player? Is he an edge player? Is he some kind of hybrid in these multiple fronts? You're like, well, the Cardinals take him. Let's figure out. And then he gets hurt and misses most of his rookie season. And when he finally gets back, 13, 14 weeks into the season, I don't know that we got a ton of clarity as to how good he's going to be at any of these things. So for a guy who was, I think, one of the more intriguing players just in terms of what he was going to be, I think we got frustratingly little in the way of resolution to that from his rookie season.
The one last thing I just want to add to everything here, cornerback, I think is still a question, but they have a whole lot of young, intriguing talents, whether it's Starling Thomas or Garrett Williams or Max Melton. So they can either stick with that youth movement where they have upside, like those guys could develop, or are they a team where they could bring in a DJ Reed? Like I don't trust Sean Murphy Bunting as an outside corner. Still, it just never really produced there on the outside. Are they a DJ Reed type of team, Carlton Davis type of team? Just get at least one veteran corner while some of those other guys are developing and add some depth there. I think that's something else that I would take a look at if I'm Arizona.
Yeah, definitely. If you can get a moderate price guy that you're comfortable starting, I would definitely try and jump all over that if I was them.
Arizona fixed, all starting in the trenches on the defensive line.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.